Everyone, welcome to another Book Review Wednesday. I apologize that this video has to unfortunately be uploaded late. I was pretty busy over this week. Expect sometimes for me to have to delay videos depending on my schedule, since it can be sometimes fairly hectic, but I will be caught up by the end of today. So without further ado, for this particular book review, I wanted to focus on The Tale of Black Beauty, written by Anna Sowell, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. And this was published in 1877, so it is fairly old, and is considered to be one of the more well-known animal kinds of stories, because there actually aren't a whole lot of them, considering the fact that usually when there are animal stories, there's kind of an emphasis onto something that's more broader to, I guess, the kind of human element. Like, for example, Animal Farm, commenting on politics and, the sort of the role of government and sort of corruption, things like that. And you have other animal stories that try to focus in more on trying to create something very, um, or at least put in sort of a human touch to it, that it's primarily related to sort of human perspectives, I guess. And with Black Beauty, it's rather unique because it is told through the horse Black Beauty's perspective, and you sort of get to see his sort of life story as a horse. Now, that may not sound all too not as exciting for people who are really not into animals. Like, if you are not really a big animal person, it might be hard, I think, sometimes for people to get kind of really invested into the story because, it is primarily told through the perspective of a horse. So I can kind of understand the lack of interest. But despite that, I still think Black Beauty holds up as one of those kind of memorable stories that tries to tell it through an animal's viewpoint. And you sort of see his journey start off in the beginning, where he's at an English farm, and then he starts pulling cabs eventually in London, and then eventually he ends up retiring in the country somewhere. And you sort of see the trials and tribulations as well as the kindness that is shown to this animal. And each chapter kind of goes through various instances within the horse's life. And I think what primarily Anna, the author, really wanted to get across was this kind of message that I think a lot of people during the time maybe weren't necessarily too much aware of. So she was kind of addressing the importance of treating animals with a certain amount of dignity and respect. And a lot of what went on within this book ended up inspiring people to sort of take initiative into trying to treat animals a little bit more humanely and trying to give them the same compassion and care that you would expect that humans would do to one another as well. So it kind of tries to put it to the audience's perspective by, again, there is a sort of human element by giving the horse kind of, the ability to think and to have rationale and whatnot. But at the same time, you're seeing the sort of labor that the horse goes through. And during around this time period, especially within the 1800s, horses were very influential. Like, they were at least one of the primary modes of transportation, and they were used a lot of the time for agriculture and whatnot. So they had a huge influence on the whole, on a lot of industry within this period. And I think it's safe to say that a lot of that ended up leading to a lot of mistreatment among the animals. And there's still obviously a lot of mistreatment among animals today, but it's kind of good to see that this story kind of took that angle and kind of tried to give a fairly realistic picture of probably what the treatment was like, and also kind of bring awareness to the period into which these horses were treated really badly. and in a sense kind of giving them a voice where they probably wouldn't be able to be given a voice otherwise. So overall, Black Beauty's presentation, I think, is well suited, and it's fairly, I think, straightforward to follow. It's not as complicated as some other stories that were written around this period. And I think in particular, children could also gravitate towards this particular story, considering the fact that it is focused primarily on an animal and what it kind of goes through. So overall, I think this story sort of still stands to the test of time and is worthy of a recommendation. But I can understand if some people may or may not be as invested into it, depending upon if you really enjoy animals. In particular, if you really enjoy horses, like if you have a certain attachment to horses, I could see the that audience gravitating more towards this kind of a story. Since again, you know, horses are a very unique animal to say the least, and they've contributed a lot over the years to society, even though now they're kind of kept under kind of the radar now. I mean, the only time I think we primarily even use horses really right now is just kind of to have them as sort of pets, and then also to use them to kind of navigate trails and, you know, do kind of recreational kinds of things, and not so much labor intensive things. So it's really a worthwhile, I think, read. Uh, but again, obviously, if you have more of a animal, if you are more into animals, I can see this being a very big influencer onto your enjoyment of the book. So I think though that's really ultimately all I can say though. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care. Bye bye.